host Lee Pacchia here, and you're watching Between the Lines, part of Fault Line's look at the many cracks in America's criminal justice system. Special guest today, we have Michael Wood Jr. He's a police reform activist and former Baltimore cop. We're pleased to have him join us. Michael, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lee.
Of course. So you have a really interesting story, and I was wondering if we could start off by having you walk us through it. You were in the military for a while, and then you became a cop in Baltimore, and then a couple of years later, that all changed, didn't it?
Yeah, the story seems like at one time when I told it, I felt like it was an easy story to tell. And now it seems to have become so complicated and so nuanced that I can barely make sense of it. I feel like almost a different person from what I was just, 5-6 years ago.
Right.
But so I got out of the police department, and I was an 11-year veteran. I was a narcotics detective. I was a patrol sergeant in the Eastern District, which is like your stage for The Wire. And I felt that I was in a brotherhood. Like we were all doing the right thing, but we had problems. There was professionalism problems. There was issues with this or that. But it wasn't like the systemic outreach. And then I retired in January of 2014 because I had a shoulder injury. And then slowly, I started to see the corruption in the cover-up of Mike Brown's killing. And then as story after story got told, finally we got to Tamir Rice. And I think my heart still can't make sense of Tamir Rice's murder. I don't know.
That was a tough one to cover for sure. I mean, he was 12 years old.
Right. And then I think the last wall I had in my head was that it's not Baltimore. It's not my friends. It's not us. I know we have problems, but not that. And then Freddie Gray. So I already knew the drug war was bad. It's a silly thing. We can get into that. But we were chasing a man down and going to take his freedom away because of prohibition of a substance. Maybe that's what we were hunting him down for. And then we take him and put him in a metal box when the number one priority for law enforcement is supposed to be protect life. And you pull him out of that box, dead. And the unions and the police leadership and the mayor, they all stand up and say, we didn't do anything wrong here. There's no intent. Oh, well, things happen. Move along. And it's that was it for me, emotionally, and maybe that was physical. Tamir broke my heart, but then Freddie Gray the situation, his death just broke my denial and made it feel like a moral imperative to start talking about what happens in policing behind that blue wall. So I started doing that, and people paid attention. I didn't expect anyone to pay attention. I think I was just personally venting.
I remember when you kind of came out on social media, it was interesting because everyone was like, well, wait a second, is this really an actual police officer now that's going to turn over in a sense and start talking honestly about what's happening in the criminal justice system? You have an outstanding social media presence, I think bolstered in part or largely in part because your story is so rare. Cops are rarely critical of the way policing is done in this country. Why do you think that is?
I think it's a lot of different things. Criminal justice, the way it came up from poisonous ideas of catching slaves and enforcing oligarchy. So we have just evolved from that bad idea. And so everywhere you go is a problem. I think fundamentally, in society, we say, is it legal? Thinking, is it right? Because there's a law. And so a part of policing says, well, if you have this law, then you're saying this is what you want me to do. So cops are doing what the system incentivizes them to do. And our education system as a whole also doesn't teach people to think critically. They teach people to follow orders and to respect authority. And those things are fundamentally non-American. And it's the most patriotic of us say, respect the police and follow the law and do what the government says. So it's a microcosm of our society as a whole.
I was wondering if you could help us kind of get in the head of people that are currently working as law enforcement professionals. You've spoken about instances in your career where you witnessed wrongdoing, bad actions by your colleagues, stuff that you weren't comfortable with at the time and you're certainly more uncomfortable with now. Can you walk us through what it's like to watch stuff like this and not report it? I mean, why did your former self not report this wrongdoing when you're in the middle of your career?
I always try to take it away from me because I'm not making excuses for me. It must be clear that I'm just trying to explain the mentality, whether it's mine or another officer's. I don't justify anything or make excuses for anything. I think the ultimate idea is that this is like a club. It's like a frat house. I think people watch TV and they think that cops are organized and they're professional and they're like trying to get the bad guy. But that's not how the system is structured. The system is structured for cops to go to work and get stats and to make arrests and to get closures. There's nothing in the system that's pointing them towards justice or pointing them towards doing the right thing. So the public as a whole thinks that policing behind closed doors is that. It's CSI or something they see on TV. But policing behind closed doors is largely like a frat house or like a sports team or something like that, where there's this deep us, like that's your team. So if you assault someone or violate someone that's on the other team, for one, who cares they're on the other team? And for two, you're likely to get a stat that says you are now more highly regarded in your team.
One would imagine that your former teammates are not thrilled with you speaking out. That's unfortunate, but I can certainly see how that is that your reality? I shouldn't be presumptive here. How have your former colleagues reacted to what you're doing now?
So I have like 2 friends left in BPD, in Baltimore Police Department. But around the country, a lot of cops have written me and prospective cops have written to say, you know, I want to go in policing. Should I still do this? Or I'm here and I get what you're saying. Like, how can I exist in this system and knowing that it is what it is? So I get a lot of that where guys do understand it. I think fundamentally a lot of cops understand it and they want to do better. But the system that's in place all around the nation doesn't even allow them to do better. Like, their careers depend upon playing this game. And so someone needs to come in and say no more game.
How does that happen? I mean, what's the quick fix here? Is there a quick fix?
Well, I think the quickest fix is the people pushing some politician somewhere to instill a police leader that will listen to the people, or where the politicians give up the power to the people. I think a lot of things fall in line then. The other biggest advantage is ending the drug war. If we can end the drug war, we're eliminate. I'm going to go with like at least half of police brutality cases, because that's where it all starts. It all starts in this drug war, and that's like the biggest difference maker we could do. But that thing would also fall naturally if you present your case with empirical evidence to a like police board that actually has control over a police department. They're going to arrive at the same conclusion. So it's really just about police not being dictators, not saying this is policing and this is the law and this is what you will do. It's saying to the public, what do you want your policing to do? What can we do for you?
So we were talking before, obviously, about a lot of the negative that's in the news flow when it comes to American criminal justice. But in this interview, we also started to touch on some of the things that might be cause for optimism. Marijuana is legal in at least two states in this country now. The tide in the drug war seems to be turning, at least from my vantage point. We are seeing more prosecutions of police officers for certain types of killings. We're starting to even see some convictions. How do you see things? Are things getting better in your view?
No, I think things are being placated. because we're not seeing substantial law change or policy change that will put things in concrete. So we're seeing an occasional I get credit for doing what I'm supposed to do. So I'm not really a fan of thinking we're getting much right now until there is policy, law, and actual substantive progress that will entrench itself, that will be real. For a police chief to say, you know what? That prosecutor in Ferguson did commit a criminal act when he covered up that indictment, and I'm going to arrest him. Until I see something like that, I'm not going for it right yet. I think we still have a lot of work to do in pushing the agenda and getting people to understand what's going on. The drug war is progressing, obviously, but it's like we're progressing for something that the opposition doesn't even have any evidence to support. But we have piles of evidence that support the legalization and regulation of marijuana as being more beneficial to society. The other side has zero evidence that having it legal or that it being legal is beneficial, illegal is beneficial to society. So we're actually arguing against nothing. It's like banging your head on the wall. Like, I want to give praise to the progress that we've made, but its pace is tiresomely slow, especially when it comes to things like brutality, because that's an equation. And what you're saying is that, not you personally, but what society would be saying is, look at this progress we have made at the expense of these certain amount of innocent and or brutalized individuals, even murdered, killed, that we haven't done anything yet. So that's always an equation there, that people are being harmed versus the progress you're making. And I think every step of that equation is unacceptable. But maybe I'm being too ideological.
Michael, I gotta say, talking to you, you sound like someone who is gearing up for a run for office in your future. Do you have any plans to enter politics?
People say those kind of things. I've never envisioned myself on that path. I'm a scientist. I'm going to continue that pathway of finishing my PhD and doing scholarly work to put it in the literature and have the empirical evidence support these changes is the path that I'm going on. If the public pushes to allow me to break into something else, I will. But like, as long as you have to sell out the corporate donors to get anything done, I don't see somebody like me running for anything. What am I going to do with the $10 in my pocket?
Sure. Did I see that you filed an application to be the next police chief in Chicago?
Yes, I did do the application for Chicago.
What was that like?
Well, it's 38 pages long. There was 8 essays that had to be 3 pages on each question, so it was really quite difficult to be that concise. I think
that's got to be one of the toughest jobs in the country. Why would you want to go to Chicago and run the police department?
But why does anybody think it's tough? I think it's tough because you keep doing things the wrong way. I don't think it's tough if you do things the right way. The things that I talk about doing, so I made it public. My application's public. Somebody can go to my website, just type in my name, and you can go to the website and you can see the application in its entirety, all of my resume and everything. I'm completely out there and completely transparent. I think anybody that reads that would come to the conclusion that I would be ideally suited to do it. I still don't think that the government and the politicians and the public have pushed enough. The public hasn't pushed enough for the politicians to do something that revolutionary. So I really want the ideas to be out there. I want people to hear it, but I'm not confident yet that we're ready for that level of progress.
Cool. Michael, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for talking to us today, sir.
Thank you.
That's Michael Wood, police reform activist. If you like the stuff we're working on, do us a favor and check us out on MimesisLaw.com under the fault lines. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. There's more good stuff coming. If you're listening to us on podcast, do us a favor and write a good review in iTunes. It makes all the difference in the world. I'm Lee Pacchia. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.
Texas, as in a lot of states, police officers, as are firemen, are protected class citizens when it comes to capital murder. if you kill a police officer or a fireman in the line of duty, they're in the course of their job, it has the potential to be a capital murder, which allows the death penalty to be a potential